Signed a new multi-fight deal. I'm very, very excited about. Our visions are aligned.
Yes, Conor Benn, breaking news, signs multi-fight deal with Zuffa Boxing, Dana White, and that's what's happening, man. That is what is happening. And so you saw my last video on this particular topic where I was just looking at some clips from Nigel Benn commenting on what would happen next, and you could see in one of those short clips where Nigel Benn's kind of saying he doesn't see Eddie Hearn working with my words, Conor for the short term. He didn't see it happen, and you can see why, because obviously there's some sort of discussions in relation to this multi-fight deal. Now, as I say, everything from my perspective is alleged or allegedly. I obviously haven't seen terms of deals and stuff. I must say, look, I've heard Eddie Hearn saying this a few times. It seems that in relation to the one fight, there doesn't seem to be any major issues with that sort of one fight. So that was that $15 million on pounds fight in, what's his name? Reggie Prograis, and Conor Benn was successful in doing so. However, I've heard Eddie Hearn say a couple of times, he's kind of saying that he's going to need disclosure into relation to what's happened. It does. I mean, I'm interpreting it. And this is all allegedly. Obviously subject to what Eddie Hearn confirms down the line. Whether there's a question over, there should have been some disclosure in relation to a longer term deal that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Boxing were entitled to have as part of their pre-existing contract. So, for example, I haven't seen the contract myself, as I say, but it seems that Eddie Hearn is saying that in the existing contract that he had with Conor Benn prior to all this, before it ran out, that he would have needed to get some sort of approval or some sort of agreement for any longer term deal, longer than one fight or something. I mean, Eddie Hearn will no doubt come back and clarify that, but it seems that's the impression that I'm kind of getting, because I've heard Eddie Hearn say it a couple of times, certainly, that he wants disclosure and he wants to know whether, when that first deal was being agreed, whether there is a larger, longer deal being agreed also. And I don't know what specific term of contract that Eddie Hearn is relying on to get the disclosure that he's seeking in relation to that. But that does seem to be one of the kind of factors here that comes into it. So look, we'll see it down the line. But in terms of the details of the deal, I think from what I've read, I think it's a 5-fight deal. Is it for $30 million or something along those lines? I think so. I think it's a 5-fight deal for $30 million. Now, proportionately, having gotten, let's break it down like this. And this is all allegedly. They will no doubt confirm the figures themselves at some point. But if we look at, so he's got 15. Obviously, 30 million for 5 fights is not as great a deal as 50 million for one, but obviously 30 million in itself is quite a lot of money. Broken down across 5 fights, what's that? I don't know. 5 divided by 3. What are you looking at? Sort of 8 million. Well, about 6-7 million a fight, or 8 million a fight, or I don't know, something along those lines. But anyway, it's still a lot of money. I mean, 50 million for most people would be they be happy with it. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts on this. Really, what's this lady saying? Let me hear what she's saying on this. Conor Benn signs multi-fight. Let's see what her
Conor Benn has signed a new multi-fight deal with Zuffa. Now, I felt like it was just a matter of time.
We got boxing updates 25.
before we heard this. Obviously, had the one fight with Regis for a big sum of money, 15 million. But I didn't think it would end there. I just felt like there must be more going on because he's left Matchroom, he's gone to them. I don't think there was going to be any wiggle room for him to go back.
So she's saying there's no wiggle room to go back. I mean, yeah, that's what Dad Nigel Ben was. That's what Dad Nigel Ben was saying.
Do we think Queensbury would have picked him up? Probably not. So the deal with Zuffa.
That's interesting, actually. Queensbury, but I mean, Zuffa's in there already, isn't it? But yeah, I've just got this. I do want to look at how this unfolds legally wise, just to see what Eddie's point is. I mean, in general terms, Eddie's not really. I mean, I've certainly made those kind of points, but he's not really commenting on this because he's saying, you know, there's a lot going on in relation to this, so he can't really comment on this. I guess for legal reasons or whatever it is. So I guess maybe he'll provide more detail down the line. But he's not, you know, as much as he's given glances on the case, he's not really discussing it in any great detail.
Makes sense, and it's for money, and I get it, and Conor's done what's right for him. But what do you think the steps are? It's a multi-fight deal, so I don't think they're going to be chucking him straight into a world title fight, especially after that performance against Regis. I felt like
that's a good question that the young lady raises. Actually, people weren't impressed with his fight against Pro Gracie. He was successful, didn't knock him out, and even. Yeah, they went through the rounds. He didn't knock him out, and you might expect that. Apparently, Progration may have been injured as well.
Like it was lackluster, and right now,
one of the questions is, and I think Eddie might have made a point, is that he's fighting too light. He needs to go up to 154, 160. He fights better at those weights. He doesn't really have the knockout power at these this type of weight. And to be fair, like when he was fighting, he obviously went up against Chris Eubank, and let me think. Well, in both fights, he was a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, Chris Eubank won the first fight, but you know he was a force to be reckoned with. And obviously, Chris Eubank also had the subject to the dehydration clause, but Conor Benn was a force to be reckoned with at those weights.
Personally, I think he needs another fight before we even think about world titles. Who would you?
But 5 fights. 5 fights. I mean, I'm not saying he's any. What's he, 29 or something like that? I'm not saying he's anywhere the time it. Maybe they're going to give him a couple more fights before he faces Garcia. Because I thought he would be facing Garcia next, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. Because people are going to want to see it, but they're people also going to want to see kind of quality level of competition, really, aren't they?
Who would you like to see Conor face next?
But yeah, look, yeah, thanks for that. Let's see. I mean, as I say, Eddie Hearn's been pretty guarded on this. Let's see.
Is he actually a free agent? Do you feel like he's a free agent?
I think if you want to get
So this was 5 days ago.
sucked into the fact that someone would pay $15 million.
And someone would pay $50 million and big up Uncrowned for the credit them on this, just reacting to this.
For a 10-round fight, where it's probably worth $1 million, and have no.
Saying that the fight's worth $1 million, yeah, that's probably fair. But look, marketing-wise, Conor has built himself up to get that money. It is what it is. Eddie, you helped do that, mate. You helped build him up to that level, and that's what's happened.
No future options, no deal in place. You are probably the biggest idiot on the planet.
This is what I'm getting at, and he was more before they actually announced the Multifight deal. He was more forthcoming talking about it as he is now. So he's kind of saying, hold on a second, that 15 million isn't just for one fight, it's for more. But actually, what's actually happened, he's gotten 30 million more for other fights in addition. But he's basically saying the 15 million is a sweetener. Now, I don't know what that does legally. I'm trying to tease out and trying to understand what Eddie Hearn's actually saying about this, because he can't be clear, because obviously it's an ongoing potential litigation or whatever it is. Fair enough. But I'm really trying to understand what his point is. Is he saying that if it was a multi-fight deal, and that's what I think he's saying, then there's some sort of recompense or some other additional steps that needed to be taken in relation to Matchroom Boxing? That's what I'm reading into it anyway.
But that is what was reported to us. That was what we had to effectively match.
Oh, this is getting to the and he's not really discussing this element of it now. So reading into it even a bit more, I'm surmising, all allegedly, but I'm surmising that Conor Benn's existing contract with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, and I'm not saying this is gospel, this is what I'm just logically, seems to be what's sort of coming to me, that if it's a one fight deal, okay, then if it's a one fight deal, and I do want to continue this interview, then he doesn't have to match. Eddie Hearn doesn't have to match for a one fight deal. However, if it is for a multi-fight deal, sorry, and when I say doesn't have to give Eddie Hearn and Matchroom the opportunity to match. However, if it is for a multi-fight deal, part of the existing contract between Benn and Matchroom and Eddie Hearn was that they have to give essentially Matchroom right of first refusal. I think look, I haven't seen the agreements myself, but I'm 80, well, probably 90% sure, or it seems it's 90% most logical that the reason why Eddie Hearn isn't, I mean, he's not pleased that Conor was leaving anyway, and obviously the loyalty through 10 years, etc. But if Eddie Hearn is essentially been missing out on the opportunity of matching a multi-fight deal, and he wasn't given that opportunity to match a multi-fight deal, I'm not saying he's saying that, this is just logical analysis, then this 15 million was part of a long overarching agreement which you add on to the 30 million, and in fact what it actually constitutes is a multi-fight deal. And Eddie Hearn is essentially saying, my words, it's just, this is just analysis based on the information that's out there in the media, that Eddie wasn't given the opportunity to match a multi-fight deal. Probably going to end the video near there, really, because I think that's where we are on this. But let's hear what you're saying further.
And now it's a case of making sure there's that disclosure in place to prove to us that is the truth.
So that's the disclosure that I've been talking about, that he's kind of seeking in relation to this, to prove that it's not it wasn't just a one-off fight deal. And I'm trying to understand why it would be that after that one. So maybe it is that you can have a one fight and not give Matchroom the opportunity to match, and then after that everything's done. However, if you're in your first fight, so this I'm going even further analysis into the contract a bit more in my mind anyway. After the first fight, if you for your first fight, if it's part of a linked number of fights, then you have to give us first right refusal. Whereas if you have one fight and then you don't have any other fights, you have one fight, the contract's done and dusted, then if you then after that one fight then go on to sign a multi-fight agreement, then that's outside of our hands. But I think what Eddie's alluding to allegedly, is that there was always an agreement to have multi-fight agreements. We'll see. It will all come out in the wash. As I say, he said disclosure and all this. But let's see.
Of which we will be making sure it is the truth. And if it's not the truth, there'll be a major problem, and we'll get to the bottom of if that is the truth.
So that's where we are on that. Now, I'm sure I'm not going to see any comments. It's 5-5, so it's a 5-fight deal over Zuffa Boxing over 2.5 years. Okay, that's what's been said. A new direction. Look, we'll see. I mean, in terms of forget the money side, forget the whatever legal wranglings these lot might have between them. For the fans, for the boxing fans, what do we think about this? Is it good for boxing? The 15 and the 30 to 45 million. Obviously, the money's going to come from the fans. Are people interested in seeing Conor fighting? Are people interested in seeing Conor fighting for more world titles against the likes of Ryan Garcia? What 5 fighters do you think he should be fighting next? And yeah, man, that's the type of discussion and dialogue I'd like to see in the chat. Really, what do you think about this? Basically, 5 fights. Who should he fight? When should he go for a world championship? And let me ask my final question. Do you think Eddie Hearn might be right that there might... I mean, I'm not saying he said that per se, but what he's alluding to, that in fact there was always a multi-fight deal all along? Who knows? Let me know what your views are on that. But big up all the watchers, listeners and subscribers. Bit of British boxing analysis, a bit of American boxing analysis here, the business side of things, contractual, legal and all of that. But yeah, please let me know what you think about this. $30,000 or pounds, what is it? $30,000, Multifight 5 deal over 2.5 years. Conor Benn's cashing in. Why not? He's as you saw on that clip from the other video, he's trying to look out for the legacy of his family. And I, as a father, any father, we all hear that. And that's just business, I guess. That's just the boxing business. Please make sure you like, share, comment and subscribe. But for now, I'm done talking.